Hello everybody, welcome back to the Simple Side podcast. I am back and unfortunately my friend Wesley and Caitlin couldn't make it, so I'm sorry about that, but some things like that just happened. So today's topic will be, we're not continuing the Jesus' Miracles series for another week. Sorry I've been so long since I've recorded, but yeah, this one podcast will be about salvation and how people got saved in the Bible and how we can be saved. So, enjoy the music break, guys. See you in a minute. Okay, welcome back. So, salvation, what does it actually mean? In my opinion, salvation means you've been given a second chance, and that someone has loved you enough to give you a second chance after something's not gone right. That's what happened with Jesus. He created us in the beginning. We were perfect. We were living in harmony with Him. We were doing everything correct in His eyes. And then, you know what happened? Eve picked the apple, shared it to Adam, and then our separation was, we were separated from God directly. But that was changed when Jesus came down. We were given the power of prayer once and for all. And that shows us how much God loves us to send His Son down, His only Son, by the way, to die for us so we could be with heaven with Him. And we're sinners. I'm a sinner. And I find that amazing because Jesus gave up things like that God has, like omnipresence, being able to be multiple places at once. And He also gave up a lot of other things. And when Jesus died, He was quite scared that He'd be separated from God forever. That was a humanly thought that sunk into His head. I'm not getting into that. That'll be part of our Jesus' Ministry series. So we're going to dive right into, I guess, the podcast. So basically, salvation. So some people in the Bible that have been, I guess, to say, saved by salvation. Well, for starters, I guess, what was his name? David. David did some very bad things against the Ten Commandments, and he knew, and God actually forgave him. All he had to ask was, I'm sorry. There were consequences, I should say, but he was forgiven. That's all that matters. Also, other people in the Bible. Jacob, he stole Esau's rightful birthright. And that wasn't very good, but guess what? Not only Esau forgave him, God forgave him. Now, a best example I can come up with would be, what's his name? Paul. You know what? He changed his name to Paul, from Saul. So, basically, he used to go around killing Christians, going into the cities, killing all Christians, capturing them, kids, children, parents, anyone who was a Christian. Doesn't matter about their age. And he would go around and just capture them. Now, that's pretty hard, and they're God's people, spreading God's particular message. But guess what? God forgave him and even became him a saver of sinners, not a killer of people trying to save other people. And I get some Christians wouldn't have forgiven him for killing their family members, capturing them, but God forgave him and he became one of the main apostles in the Bible, and a very, very good one if you want to learn more about trust and all that stuff. So basically, how can you be saved? Because we see a lot in the Bible of people being saved, forgiven, all this stuff, miracles. But how does that apply to our life today? We don't go around on horse and cart in general. Maybe some people do. It might be a hobby, maybe in Poland and that. I don't know. But basically, this story and all these, the Bible, full stop, applies to our life in specific ways. Not directly, but it speaks to each one of us in a personal way. Now, basically, the way to be saved. Now, you don't have to say some fancy long prayer, be some kind of person that keeps 500 laws or rules specific things. God does give us the 10 Commandments to guide our lives. But why would you want to follow his rulebook if you don't have a relationship with him deep in your heart? The way to get that relationship, I believe, is just to ask God and test God, and he might give you an answer. Well, God always answers, whether it's in the way you think or not think. He gives you an answer all the time. So that's a way of testing God. Read the Bible, and maybe it'll comfort you. And basically, God can do amazing things. You'd be surprised of how many people have been converted who hated God, absolute full-on atheist, or didn't even know God. And basically, this is just an example of how powerful God is, sinking into people's hearts. He doesn't force a relationship. He just, when people find it, they find out God's love. And one thing that usually gets to people's hearts is when they hear that a God, someone so high up and powerful, came down to die on a rugged cross to save us for sinning against him. Not just sinning in general, but against him. All of our creation, all of us, was sinning against him. But guess what? He came down, gave up tons of stuff, and, well, that's why we're saved these days. And I believe that God is coming back. And this podcast, this particular episode, is about the way that God has died for our salvation. He has given us a second chance, more than second chances. Some people have gone back and forth, and God still accepts you in the end. Even some of the worst people in history have had the chance. I don't know if they might have in their hearts, but they've had the chance, even if they've killed 5 million people or more, to return to God. And I think that's an amazing promise. And we will get more into that in some other episodes. But that's just a little thought for you to think about. And if you want to read a bit about salvation, read Matthew, Mark, and Luke has some good parts as well on Jesus' death and his birth. Read in between and those 2 points, and you'll see that, and maybe even start reading a bit of Genesis and a bit of Revelation, where John sees heaven. And just imagine in Revelation, why would God want to leave such an amazing place to come down to our earth where people kill each other, where we're not nice to each other? Well, you can read for yourself between all those passages which I just shared. And when I do a podcast with my friends, we will all have a group conversation, forget it. I need to learn English still. There's still something that I'm getting used to because I've only known English for like heaps of my life, which is my whole life. And basically, just remember, God came down for us. And I get it. Some people they just think God's just another thing that'll just be too complicated for their lives. We get it. But just think, God can stop anything. Just saying that if you become a Christian or just believe in God, that doesn't mean you'll instantly have a perfect life. You won't. Some people will question it, some people will ask tons of questions, but you know what? Walking through those events with God makes such a big difference compared to going through those situations without God. So, yeah, he's like a loving companion, an invisible one that walks right next to you during the whole day. And just to go along with Jesus' message and his relationship with us is the Bible. The Bible is like the guidebook to life, the salvation book, you could say. It's the book that brings people to God. And not only that, it helps them live a long, happy life. So, enjoy the music break, and we'll have a reflection and the end of this salvation podcast. Enjoy the music, guys. So what have I covered this episode? This episode I basically covered why Jesus came down for us, what was God's original plan, and what is the Bible, why love God, like why, and what's the benefit from loving God. And in all this, I believe that God is a companion that will never leave you, that's always willing to listen to you, that will listen to anything, not even if it's something not so nice. God will listen and God will answer. God will comfort and God will care. God is just that kind of friend that you want to be perfect, that knows your deepest secrets, that you're not embarrassed to talk to like some other people. That's what God is. And just every night or every morning or any time of the day, you can pray with your eyes open, eyes closed, kneeling, standing, out loud, inside. It doesn't matter. God will listen. And maybe one day, if you don't already believe in Jesus, you might find a hope that I have. So after this another music break, we'll wrap this thing up. Thank you guys. Okay, so what's happened in this episode was just covered. Thank you guys for listening to Simple Side, and I really appreciate your support. Sorry about the long differential between the podcast, and I hope you guys have a great day or night depending on where you are. See ya.